How's it going, everybody? Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. I'm ready to pull up a chair, sit back, relax, and welcome you to Season 2, Episode 16. While we're getting up there, of the SPMA Council podcast. As we're recording this, we're on the tail end of reading week, so I hope that everyone has had a great reading week to unwind, relax a little. Hopefully, you didn't have too much work on your plate, so you can afford to at least unwind. And if you're listening to this after reading break, welcome back. We're on the home stretch of the 2020-2021 academic year. So foot in the gas until April exam season. Before we shed some light of who we had on today, let's welcome our co-host, our head of social media for the podcast, Evan Pike. Piker, what's happening, my man?
Hey man, not much. Just grinding away on reading week, enjoying a little time off and happy to be back on the podcast for I guess this is my third time
It
on
might
now. So
it's either your third or your fourth, or something.
yeah.
I think I've lost a little bit of track. So I mean, dedicated to the grind, but able to able to slip in a podcast appearance. That's a veteran move right there. That is a veteran move. Maybe no time left in the schedule. No podcast appearance, and you're able to come through in this episode. But actually, thanks to you for this, because this our guest today was a connection of you, a connection of yours that you met while, correct me if I'm wrong, at a virtual meeting with your group for the 2022 Canada Games. Erin Uchtenhagen, who is a business executive for the Red Deer Rebels, although business executive doesn't even come close to describing your role. She is a professional that wears many. She is a professional that wears many hats. So, Evan, thoughts in the episode, because it was a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, actually the turnaround for this was crazy. I just met her last week for our ticketing and merch Canada Summer Games meeting. And yeah, she seemed like an amazing guest to have on the show. So um, yeah, I asked her if she wanted to be on, and she did. So we made that happen, which is amazing. Um, Guest wise, she provided some awesome insights into her field in terms of the sport industry, and um, yeah, really enjoyed the episode. Really enjoyed talking to her again.
Yeah, and there were a bunch of cool stories that she shared. You're gonna learn how fashion how getting involved in fashion translates to a role in sport. Sounds a little crazy now, but if you listen to the story, then it's then you'll find that it's pretty awesome. And she also shed some light on her team's recent headline of housing their players in the arena's suites for the 2021 season. It's a really unusual story that's only happens during COVID. I've said that a bunch of times, but just some cool story, just some really cool stories to hear, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I think without further ado, we should send it over to Erin. Thanks again, Evan, for getting the podcast acclimated with that connection. Listen to the episode, please, because she provides a very unique look on her side of the industry, and the incredible journey that she took to get to where she is today. So without further ado, let's send it over to Erin Uchtenhagen of the Red Deer Rebels. We hope you all enjoy. Cheers, folks. All right, like I said in the intro, we have a great episode planned for season 2, episode 16 of the SPMA Council podcast. And joining us now is the executive of business operations for the Red Deer Rebels of the Western Hockey League, Erin Uchtenhagen. Welcome to the show. How's it going?
Hi, good. Thanks for having me, you guys.
No problem, Erin. Now, to start off the podcast, it's sort of the de facto first word or first question. Erin, what makes your story unique?
Yeah, I thought that was a great question. It was hard too, but I came to the conclusion that I don't really think my story is any more unique than others, and kind of don't look at myself or my life that way. So that one was just short and sweet from me.
Yeah, pretty common answer. It seems like on the show, people don't really think their story is unique, except for the fact that everybody's story.
Yeah. Everyone has such fun lives.
Yeah, and I mean, when in sports, when you're pursuing your career, there may be a standard route to get there. Say, take an internship, get a few entry level roles here and there. But each guest that we've had on, they've had there's always lots of interesting turns as we go through the episode. That's even if you think that it's not as unique, the uniqueness sort of does shine through as we progress through the episode. At least that's what I found throughout season 2.
That's fun. Yeah, everyone's road is interesting and different for sure.
Yeah, so sorry, I had a little audio issue there. You went to Red Deer College for business administration and a management degree. So when you look back on that, were there any sort of experiences that you collected, maybe from your time there, that maybe pushed you towards sport specifically, or?
Yeah, so I mean, I took business admin because I thought it was safe, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. Probably like most people, right? They just either go traveling or head into something safe. So I did that, and I'm always up for advancing or learning, and I'm always taking different courses in person or online. But after business admin, I found myself, I ended up taking apparel technology diploma in Olds College, basically just sewing. So we did like studying pattern making, apparel construction, alterations, design. So after kind of our end of our 2 years there, we did a year-end fashion show, and it was the centennial. So we wanted to make it just huge. We went all out for this. So typically there was the fashion marketing students who would do this. So but I don't remember what happened there, but they weren't as involved. So I don't know, this other girl and I basically just said to each other, well, how are we going to pay for this? So we ended up doing amazing amount of fundraising throughout the community. And I had done some fundraising in the past through political events with my father, but nothing kind of on that scale. So we had, made sponsor levels, did sponsor levels of donations, and then got silent auction items, a bunch of different stuff to do with running the front of house and everything for this fashion show. And we did a designer meet and greet with like wine and cheese. So it was a lot of work getting this whole event set up. But it was amazing being so busy and watching the show. And then after that, I thought to myself, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I like doing events and I think that's what I want to do. So I think in that aspect, after going through that part of my schooling, I finally realized that it was kind of the event part that kind of ran my life into the sporting industry, because really kind of with my background after the apparel technology at Olds College, I ended up going to New York for about 6 months, and I was working with a designer doing events and helping in his showroom there, and then came back from New York and landed a job at our regional health foundation, which is doing events for the hospital and doing fundraising there. And then as soon as it was announced that the 2019 games were coming to Red Deer, I just knew I had to be a part of it in some capacity. Obviously, I really wanted to get hired on, but a volunteer capacity would have been just great with me. So I have a big background in downhill ski racing, so I just thought that was definitely more up my alley than the summer games for sure. But yeah, I remember reading in the paper too that the CEO was named for the 2019 games, and I remember I saw him a few times at our hospital foundation events, and I made sure that I got my name out there, made sure I talked to him. I definitely called his office probably too many times. And yeah, just asking about potential opportunities coming up with jobs and or volunteer positions. And then he finally started passing me off to the marketing and revenue director at the time. So it was Leanne Rains. So I feel like because I was stalking him maybe too much, I did get the job, but being persistent and I guess establishing a case for myself, it was kind of a route I wanted to take, and it was a little extreme, but it did end up working. But I think because I know I am in the sport industry, but I think being that each of these sporting industries that I've been in, the kind of fun part of creating a fun environment and fan experience with events has kind of driven that with certain jobs for me. And I just enjoy having a busy lifestyle. So that's good.
Who would have thought that going into your first couple years of college, your first year of college, you would have encountered a situation where one group didn't provide any help, and you had to step up, and that down the line led to some sports roles like that, just the concept with the fashion show. I know it's not. I know listeners listening to this. It's like, they're probably saying, well, that's the furthest thing from sport, but
yeah,
but really, like, that's the epitome of getting out of your comfort zone, which is the theme that we've been trying to hammer home throughout the season 2. Like many times, whether it's in the summer job or whether it's in the club, there's going to be times where either something maybe goes wrong, or maybe someone falls ill, or someone just doesn't step up, and you have to take that opportunity and step up to the plate. And it didn't, and it doesn't, and it didn't, and it didn't, and it was it seems like it was a huge undertaking with not just like general business aspects, but sponsorship, fundraising, just to make the show happen. And the chain reaction after that, meeting the CEO of the 2019 Winter Games, and then and then getting opportunities from there. It's funny how, you know, how networking works. And you may have said that you know, you may have called office a couple too many times, but again,
Yeah.
that's just the beauty of cold calling and like trying hard to get your name out there, because you'll never know where it will lead to you.
Absolutely. And I don't know that this is an opportunity for everyone, but I think one of the biggest things by getting my job at the 2019 Canada Winter Games was I made sure I went in and handed my resume in person too. So I think that was a big difference where they got to see me versus, so I think that solidified an interview as well. Because I know hearing afterwards, they were like, wow, we were impressed, because not a lot of people do that nowadays, right? Everyone's just kind of sits behind their computer, and that's not a bad thing. And I just think that sometimes my resume doesn't maybe speak for itself. So I want to be there in person and be like, hey, I'm here, I'm ready to do the job.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, right now we're all sort of stuck behind our computers. You know, we can't really go out and you know, hand in a resume in person. But definitely a good point in terms of, you know, getting your name, connect the name to a face, and that goes a long way in terms of getting a job. I know you've mentioned the Canada Winter Games a couple times now, and that's actually how you and I met last week. And actually, both Will and I are in roles in the 2022 Niagara Canada Summer Games. But going back to the games in Red Deer, you were responsible for overseeing the ticketing and merchandise aspect of those games. So in that role, what was that experience like for you? And maybe just take us and the listeners through sort of what a typical day-to-day was for you during the games when they were sort of in full swing.
Yeah, for sure. The definitely the full experience from start to finish was just absolutely amazing. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was like a once in a lifetime thing. It was very cool. So, I mean, after 2 years of planning for me, it was just so exciting to finally be able to execute our plans, because, you know, you just research and plan. So to be able to finally see everything come together, it was unbelievable. It was so like emotional, but so wonderful at the same time. It was great. And obviously you're like, if you're in a staff role, you're really putting out fires for most of the 2 weeks, which is still fun because you're still being busy, but then you're trying to adapt and be flexible to kind of different things that are coming your way. And maybe, like, I know Evan, I may have mentioned this on the call too, but I know with ticketing we had a few issues. The program that we made, it wasn't exactly perfect for every sport. So, you know, it was nice that we were at least had some guidelines and policies and procedures in place, but yet being able to adapt and be flexible was an asset, I think, for our team for sure. Yeah, and I would have to say I could argue that we had the best team for merchandise and ticketing, like from my co-chairs to our venue leads to the supervisors to all our volunteers. Like, I just have to put that out there because they were so amazing. It was unreal. Like every venue I'd go to, everyone was just so happy to be there. Like, I mean, merch is such a fun area to be in anyways, so ticketing was great too in some capacity. But a typical day, that one was hard because no day felt the same for me personally.
Interesting.
Yeah, so definitely the first 3 days are crazy. They're like 16-hour days. You know, kind of just putting out those crazy fires at the start. And then once all your venue leads and all your volunteers kind of get into a routine and a rhythm, then everything starts to slow down a bit more, and then you get to enjoy everything kind of coming at you here and there. So yeah, it was hard to answer what a typical day was, because it was just constantly changing, and then it'd be randomly like you'd have to do tear down for turnaround day, so ripping down a few merch venues and then popping them back up a day later. So everything was kind of crazy in merchant ticketing, so I wouldn't say there was one day that was the same as the other, but it was all fun, even though it was stressful.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound great.
For us and for anyone that's part of the Canada Games, or there's maybe looking to see if there's any other games time volunteer opportunities. It seems like a little preamble for Niagara 2022 with all the craziness that comes with experiencing those games. And you mentioned that your area was enjoyable by nature, but I like the point of the passion that you saw people do. Areas in sport can be enjoyable, but unless you don't have the passion for it, or the drive to make it as best of an experience as you can, the level of output you're gonna get out of it's gonna be say maybe 25 to 30% less to
Absolutely,
compared to a person who is putting proverbial blood, sweat, and tears into it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the games are quite the operation. Long days, but worth it when the city's under a national spotlight, so to speak. So moving on to your current role, where you're an executive of business operations with the WHL's Red Deer Rebels. Do you think that your experiences at the games helped you to get this position?
Oh, 100%. Like, my role with the games for sure absolutely helped me get the position I have today. Being born and raised in Red Deer, having the 2019 games in Red Deer, it was a pretty big deal to me. And especially having that background in a winter sport too, it was just so exciting. So, the city of Red Deer, we just have just over 100,000 people. So it's not Toronto big, but it's not small either. It's not a little town. So, it's amazing, not even just in this town, or in this city, but just in the world in itself. Like, people know people talk. It's crazy when you talk to people who know of somebody or know similar people in similar circles. So, at the end of the day, I just made sure that I did the best job I could do with merchandise and ticketing for the games. And I knew that, people take note of hard workers, and that that's exactly what happened to me, and which gave me the job opportunity that I had today, which ultimately the Rebels created a position to be able to hire me, because they saw what they liked at during the games. And yeah, so it was like, I feel so honored. It was very neat. They're such a great family here. But yeah, so definitely responsibilities in this role, because it's small business and it's a family run business. We definitely all have to wear multiple hats, but the primary focus of my role is merchandise and ticketing. I run the ticket software and the programming, so kind of a little bit of coding and stuff like that here. making the season kind of creating that online, and then making sure all the season ticket cards are printed, and trying to go paperless last year, and do season ticket cards, which was fun. So I think mobile, strictly just mobile, is coming in a few years, because that's kind of the way the industry is going. But yeah, and then overseeing the merchandise, the team store, and the staff for the store during the games, running the online store, and occasionally we all kind of tag team and do social media too. So it's a good gig here for sure.
Well, it looks like you're certainly not limited to what the rule says. You're doing a job that says one rule, but in reality, you might be doing three or four things that maybe
Good variety.
you didn't expect. And I mean, with the mobile tickets, it's probably good that you're doing that, because when even with reduced crowds, right? Like for health reasons, will teams be able to actually print out tickets and hand them to fans? Who knows? And this is where you might see become the norm, instead of a new thing, or an alternative thing, because of their digital and contactless nature. Sports purists might argue with me in that statement, but it's just where the industry's going, and how COVID sort of taken a hold on it, and forced everyone to adapt. And that statement is extremely true when it comes to this season. There really hasn't been a season quite like this, and more so for the Rebels, where the players are actually being housed in the suites of the arena instead of the traditional billets, billet homes, or player housing. If you were involved, how did this unique decision unfold? But if not, can you just speak to the impact that it's posed on your role for the upcoming shortened season? Maybe any unique challenges or opportunities that you've experienced because of it from a business standpoint?
Yeah. So I definitely can't take credit for this one, but it was definitely our president and his son, the VP, so Brent and Merrick Sutter. They definitely came up with the idea. It's so great. I mean, I think the basis of it was they had concerns about players' mental health. So if they were staying at the billets houses, they would, you come in, you go straight to your room, you get your meals in your room, and then you go to the rink and practice, and then you go back to your billets house. Like, they weren't really going to be able to allowed to do anything. So yeah, so I think it was more a mental health part, so that they can socialize with each other. And then I definitely was part of the planning and execution part after the decision was made. So we tried to make it like as homey as possible, but it is still an arena. So that was
I was here in the Rebels arena. Some of the billets even went as far as lending furniture in
yeah,
the seats, which
it was
was
amazing.
really cool.
Oh yeah, like I can't say anything but amazing things about our community and the billets that we have here. We did a call out to the billets, and we just said, would you guys be interested in supplying the beds that they would have been using, sorry, at their at the billets houses. And of course, like, the response was overwhelmingly wonderful. So we spent about a week just having billets come in, drop off like box springs and beds and bedding. And so we were dragging those up to rooms and getting them all ready. And then we wanted to make sure that, it felt homey and kind of like hotel-like. So we made sure that, we made their beds, and we made sure that we put like soap in the room and towels and a little face cloth. And then it was Valentine's Day that weekend too. So we made sure to put a chocolate on their pillow. It was a little much, but
Geez, starting to sound more like a hotel than your basic house, eh?
yeah, we tried to make them
Good.
feel a little bit at home there, because it's kind of like, as much as it is hopefully what we're thinking, maybe better than them staying at a billet's house so that they can socialize, but at the same time, I mean, they are away from their families. They can't really go see anyone. They can't really go to the grocery store. So we're trying to make it as fun as possible. So we tried to, we had a basketball net donated, like the community's been amazing. People dropped off ping pong tables, an air hockey table. And so there's just different things on the concourse that the guys can kind of go play and do some different things. I know people dropped off board games. Some of the guys brought their own board games or TVs and gaming sets. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to see it all come together with the community. So, and in regards to your question about any challenges or opportunities from a business standpoint, I would say that, it's been interesting because I think COVID has forced everyone to look at everything from a different perspective. Like, no matter what your role is in any company, things have changed, and businesses are amazing in being able to get creative in what they're doing, and I mean, including us too. So I guess, for example, like some of the suites that the players are in on the concourse, like, I mean, first of all, we would never thought we would ever have players living in suites. So that's different. But yeah, further to that, our concourse suites all have like glass on the front of it. So we wanted to kind of make sure they had a little bit more privacy. So we just kind of took brown paper and taped it up so they kind of felt like they had a little more privacy if they wanted. So, I mean, I just feel like there's always curveballs thrown at you in work and life, and it's just kind of how you adapt and are flexible to situations that arise and kind of help make you who you are and help continue to grow. And definitely in my brief career that I've had so far, I've definitely found I like the variety and the challenges, and not as easy as punching a clock every day, but it's good.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, the players themselves, I'm sure the, response from them living at the rink, I'm sure that's been like favorable, right? Like they probably have been enjoying that.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. So far,
that's such a unique experience. And, for the fact that you guys, were able to provide that for them is so crazy and so unique. I'm sure that they'll all remember it for the rest of their lives, right? Like living at the rink, that, what could be better than that? If you're a fan of hockey, you get to live there. And
yeah,
so
the dream.
yeah. And I mean, aside from your sort of role in sport, you've tapped into like entrepreneurial side of things as an e-commerce consultant. In this role, you sort of design websites and help clients through various aspects of business, such as like needs assessments and development. Are you still involved with that in your current role? And sort of maybe describe some of the main motivators that you had to start that way back in 2017. I know that was a really long time ago.
Yeah.
But and I mean, for any students posing sort of an entrepreneurial spirit, what advice as well could you speak to for anybody trying to start a business like that?
Yeah, it kind of just came to me through. So when I started my job at the games, they basically just handed me the Shopify site and said, here, figure it out. And it has to be bilingual. So I think the bilingual part was hard, but our merchandisers were able to help with that side. So that was good. So, but other than that, it was just researching and looking at tutorials and how to use the program. So I love that part. I love figuring stuff out. You know, and I mean, the internet's amazing. You can find anything. So it's extremely helpful. And yeah, it's just so user friendly, but I found over the years in helping clients, because I'm still do e-commerce sites and stuff like that, and helping people with their sites kind of on the side here and there. So I started with the games, and then it's just kind of grown from there. And I've just found that, you know, in helping people with their sites, they just, you know, they're running a business or they're creating products, you know, they just don't have the time, or maybe just don't want to do the research on how to appropriately create their site, or maybe it's just a few smaller items like how to link certain products or create your navigation on Shopify appropriately so it shows up and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like when I get calls, it's more people just being so busy and focusing elsewhere in their business. It's easy for them to just hire a contractor. And that's me. And it's just, I love working with these clients. It's amazing because they're just so creative, and all the different businesses that people have come up with, especially with COVID too, that, you know, I've worked with quite a few clients where they've, you know, been laid off from their job because of COVID, and then they had a side business. Now it's their full-time business and they're making great money, you know, so and they love it. So there's definitely been some positives throughout COVID for sure with this too. So I also find it funny too, because I can't remember if it was 2013 or 2014, but I like financially invested in Shopify like years ago, and was amazing. So then when I started games and they said we're going to be using Shopify, I was like, oh, great. I would love to know how to use this program because I've already invested in it. And I just thought, like, reading, like, even way back in the day when I invested in it, I just thought it was such a neat platform at the time, because in my opinion, it was kind of like entrepreneurs are the new rock stars. Like, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. So, you know, by creating products, they don't necessarily want to learn the whole business side of it or want to have to do all of it. So the platform, especially with Shopify, like they're incredible in being able to help small businesses with tools they need to succeed. And they're just like amazing and leading force in the e-commerce world today. So also, I probably would say the advice that I would have for a student who has an entrepreneurial spirit would be to find your niche and just make sure that it's something you love, because building upon that passion just has so much drive that comes with it. It's a true leading force in what you want to do. But there's a difference between, in my opinion, being passionate and emotional. So yeah, I would say passion versus emotion is the best advice that I probably could give. So yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. You know, when you know we're seeing the world going more and more digital, especially with COVID, because of government regulations. You know, you see e-commerce constantly growing and growing with new products, services, and you know people behind them that are trying to leverage the power of e-commerce as a sustainable form of income. And you know, maybe looking a couple years down the line, you know, maybe that could be that could be one of the main ways that people use to make money. But you know, like you said, it has to come down to passion and drive and being invested in what you do. And in your case, you were invested literally
Yeah.
just about 6 or 7 years ago, and based on how Shopify sort of transformed, I think that was a pretty good decision on your part. But as we draw this episode 16 to a close, Erin, just want to say thank you so much for coming on to the show. And we do this every episode where we like to give it over to our guests to have the final say as to maybe there's something that's on your mind that you may have forgotten to say, or you just want to shoot the breeze a little while longer. So, Erin, thank you so much for joining the show, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me, William and Evan. Thanks for the email, Evan. Yeah, this has been great. It's my first podcast. So thanks for having me, and thanks for listening.
Not a big deal.
You're amazing.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was great.
All right, Erin. Thanks again. Take care.
Okay, see you guys.